In the 90s, Playmates Toys made the deepest line of Star Trek action figures in history. My name's Keith, and I'm a collector working towards owning all 284. I've been a Trek fan for almost 35 years, and most people are sick of me talking about it. But somehow I've convinced my old friend Mike to review them with me on Look at My Star Trek Toys! Hello, and welcome back to Look at My Star Trek Toys. This week we are talking about Deep Space Nine, recurring friends and enemies. These are some of my favorite characters. How's it going, Mike?
It's going great. It's been a while since we've laid an episode down.
It's true.
Our recording schedule is a little screwy, but if I remember anything, it's that Deep Space Nine, this is our space station. This is our chance to be a little bit more creative with some of the character design because it's all aliens from all walks of life coming on in. So I'm excited to see what you've got in store for me today, Keith. Let's play with some toys.
From multiple quadrants of the universe. So it's not just your typical Klingons and Romulans, although they're fun too. So, but we have, I think, Deep Space Nine has the best recurring side characters. Now, Next Gen has some amazing ones. You've got Barclay out there and Ensign Rowe and people like that. But Deep Space Nine, it is just chock full of awesome side characters. So let's talk about them. And let us start with not necessarily even a side character, because he was regularly credited. It is number 6235, Jake Sisko. Beaming in here. So this is the son of our Commander Sisko, played by Cirroc Loftin, who was credited as a main cast member, but actually only appeared in about half of the episodes. Oh, okay. And was a great character because in the pilot he starts out as a little boy, a young teenager, and throughout the 7 years of the series matures into a full-grown adult. And so we sort of watch him grow up as part of this series. And I know that he was very close with Avery Brooks, who played his father. And it went on a very interesting journey as a character. Because, starting it out as sort of like a young rascal, and then he ended up being a wartime journalist throughout the last parts of the series and did some really good and interesting work. So this outfit that he's wearing, and you can see they did the figure early. This was in Deep Space Nine Series 2, so he's still basically a boy as part of the figure. And this is the outfit he wore in Deep Space Nine 103, A Man Alone. Very early, and because Star Trek was obsessed with everyone wore jumpsuits in the future. That's all you did. Nobody wore a pant and a shirt. It was all one suit. So if you had to take a leak, you had to completely undress. It was really awkward and weird. It does
lessen the need for wash, though. You know what I mean? You only need to wash the one thing.
It really is true. But it had to have been a huge pain in the butt for the actors, as it was in Next Generation, until they decided, nope, we're going to get a pant and a shirt. But we talked about that before. So what do you think of our friend here, Jake Sisko?
It's always interesting, young actors starting in a show, because the truth of the matter is though, as cute as they may be or whatever charisma they brought to that audition, as people age, they don't necessarily continue to be good actors. So
yes.
It's always nice when they do. It's good to see here that an adolescent they don't need to worry about the facial hair decisions that they did with his father character. But
That's
as
true.
far as an action figure goes, it's cool. I love a textured outfit. And I'm interested because of the scaling. Does he seem more petite when you cut to him in contrast with like a regular character?
Well, why don't we take this opportunity to go to Toy Cam and let's stand him up next to, let's say, Geordi. All right, so here's Geordi. And
Geordi's had a little much to drink. Okay, he's better now.
Geordi's, it's been a rough night, okay? And so they're basically the same height, but that was also true because Cirroc Loftin is super tall. Mm-hmm. So he grew throughout the series. I don't know what he ended up, probably 6'3", 6'4". But so he was already adult height, even as a juvenile on the show.
Okay.
So it actually feels appropriate. to the height. And you can see here on the figure, we have a lot of points of articulation, which actually add a seam to his jumpsuit that he didn't have in real life. He probably would have appreciated that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But it's a, so, I mean, you sort of have to have Jake to complete the family and to complete, honestly, the main cast of Deep Space Nine, but they didn't release Jake until Series 2 on Deep Space Nine. So, let us continue. You can't do Jake without his best friend, and that is number 6241, Nog. And of course, here he is. Now, you want to talk about scale. This one is interesting because, you know what, before I even explain anything, let's cut back to Toy Cam and let me give you a sense of the scale. So we have Geordi and Jake, but let's put Nog next to Jake. So Nog is tiny here. And
they sold him as a full-price character?
They did not. In fact, very good catch, because Nog, this figure, was a choking hazard that came along with his father, Rom, a figure we're going to get to later. So this wasn't actually, it's not actually its own figure, even though the character of Nog is a very important character. Not only is he Jake's best friend throughout the entire series, but he is, I think, the character on Deep Space Nine that develops the most. So he starts out as a child. He's playing a child, even though the actor is an adult, was an adult at the time, still is. But the character went from this sort of rascally little Ferengi into the first Ferengi in Starfleet and became a huge fan favorite. We've talked about it a little bit in the figures that I really would like Playmates to make moving forward. So Nog is played by Aron Eisenberg, and who was actually 24 when he started playing Nog, which was interesting because he was playing the same age, if not younger, than Cirroc Loftin, even though he was much older. But Aron was only 4'11", because he had a kidney transplant as a child, which stunted his growth, which allowed him to basically play younger than he was his entire career. And so this is actually from the same episode, A Man Alone from Deep Space Nine. And this was, I think, Nog's second appearance, and they misspelled his name in the credits of this episode, even though they got it right for the rest of them. He ended up doing 47 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and sadly, we have lost him recently, which is very sad. But in the great Deep Space Nine documentary about the making of it, he spoke eloquently about how important this series was to him and this experience, and just could not have been a nicer guy, and made for a fascinating character on the show. So what do you think about the figure itself, even though technically it's a choking hazard?
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to say, because the detailing, the sculpting on the face is not as detailed as we've seen in some other characters, but judging from the scale, that's not abnormal. That's not, within the budgetary concerns, restraints that they have. And at this sort of smaller scale, it makes sense it would be less detailed, and why there'd be less articulation or separation between, let's say, his shoes and
or no articulation whatsoever.
Yes, no articulation. Yes, in the figure, but I mean, like even in the costume sculpting, it's all kind of one piece instead of anything else. So, but that all makes sense. And the scale I find to be pretty interesting. It's interesting too, and I guess you could talk better about this. That the choice, like you said, was made to package him in with the father character versus what you said was his best buddy on the ship. So I guess they had choices.
Yeah, they did. And speaking of other choices, one of the things you see in the scale here is that the figure is too short. The figure is way smaller than Aron was. So Aron in real life would come up to like Cirroc's shoulder, I would say, in the series. So definitely it's saving some plastic there, apparently. And I mean, it was weird that he didn't get his own figure.
Right.
Again, most of the Deep Space Nine figures were done in seasons, they were pretty much done doing Deep Space Nine figures by season 2 or season 3, which is why there's huge holes in the collection. But also, I don't think they knew how important Nog was going to be as a character on the show yet. He was still sort of like the rascally best friend and not leading his own episodes by the end of the series, and doing really, really awesome work. All right, well, let us move forward to our next figure, and that is figure number 6236, Vedek Bareil. Let's have him come in. Okay, so what we have here is Vedek Bareil, played by Philip Anglim, who only did 8 episodes on Deep Space Nine, but was an important character in the first couple of seasons. Now you'll see he's sort of wearing what are called Vedek robes, and the Vedeks are essentially like cardinals in Bajoran religion. And so there was a storyline where they're basically replacing the Kai, which is essentially the Pope, because the Pope dies in season 1. And so one of our main villains is the competition with Bareil to become the new Pope. And of course, she's evil. But Bareil is also an interesting character in that he has a romantic connection with Kira. So there's a whole sort of love story going on there. And I can see you zooming in there on his Bajoran jewelry. And sort of like
cool.
Yeah. It's part of the spiritual, part of Bajorans. They're very much into the jewelry on the ears. So that's part of it. Couple of interesting things about Philip Anglim. He's a Broadway guy. Like us. He played John Merrick in the original Broadway cast of Elephant Man. And he also, at that time, and this was all before this, so he was very young, he played the title role in the Scottish play on Broadway. Certainly some heavy lifting there. So what do you think, Vedek Bareil?
Very cool. I wish that the kind of his jewelry was a little better represented, but I think the robe is really cool. I think he carries an air of that sort of piety about him. I don't know if that's the way the character plays out, but that's sort of what the energy that the figure gives off is. I like it. It's very slim, very, very well fitted, and I think it's a cool character.
Yeah, you got to look good to pray good.
Yeah. And
so interesting character. I mean, he didn't stick around for that long, although he did make a very memorable showing up later in the seasons by surprise. So it's a cool figure. I don't know why they did Bareil and not Kai Wynn, who was the villain that he was going up against, who became this unbelievable character throughout the entire series, not just early on. But I don't know if it was, the misguided belief that the female figures didn't sell as well as the male figures. But I certainly would very much like to have a Kai Wynn figure.
What's the deal with, I guess this once again was, like you said, was sculpted early, because they definitely made a costume change there versus the big black sort of gi type belt versus the tie off in the actual show.
Yeah, I don't know why. He might have worn this in other places in the series. This was the closest I could find. It seems like it's referencing these robes. But yeah, I mean, they weren't like a static uniform. So he wore a couple of different things that were all sort of reminiscent of this idea. All right, well, let us move forward to the father of our favorite choking hazard, and that is number 6241. Guys, it's Rom. Come on in. Okay, so Rom here is the father of Nog. Not surprisingly, which is why Nog came in as his choking hazard. And you can see right away that they put a lot more effort into the detailing on his figure than he did with his sons. So he wore this particular outfit in the Nagus in the first season episode. Rom was one of those ones, he was a civilian, so he wore a different thing every episode. So there wasn't a static uniform for him, at least to begin with, because he's another character that had a lot of interesting development throughout the course of the series. Now, Rom is played by Max Grodenchik, who is a veteran Star Trek actor who actually had previously played Ferengis on 2 episodes of Next Generation. So this is the 3rd Ferengi that he has played. He's just a guy with that sort of the body type and the attitude, and so they kept hiring him until he became this interesting character. Now, in the beginning, on the pilot of Deep Space Nine, he was credited as a Ferengi pit boss, a pit boss in the casino area, and wasn't even given a name or a character. But soon we learned that he's the brother of our good owner of Quark's bar, of Quark. And so his character, if you watch the first couple of episodes of Deep Space Nine, he's going to act very out of character because he ends up having a very very distinct portrayal of this character. And so it's weird when you read it, it's like, wait, why is Rom talking normally when he really has this very odd way of speaking? But it's delightful. He ended up doing 37 episodes of Deep Space Nine, so he did 10 fewer episodes than his choking hazard. But very charming. Has a great late series love story. A surprising love story late in the series, which is really fun. And he's a fan favorite. He's a guy you really, really root for. So what do you think about our figure here of Rom?
Oh, he's got a killer figure here. I love the color. I love the paint job there. It almost sparkles.
Yeah.
It's giving me, this is a very specific reference, I apologize. It's giving me Mummers vibes, as if he was in the Mummers parade.
Oh, if you're in Philly.
Yeah.
If you're from Philly or you're a Philadelphia in-law, like I am,
no, Google it.
You got to know the Mummers.
But yeah, it's got great paint. It's got a great paint job, like you said. It's much more detailed than the pack-in, but I guess it's a 2-for-1, so you can't complain. And well, I mean, you can't complain. That's why it's the internet. But
that's why we're here.
Yep. That said, I think it's my favorite of the bunch so far. But I love the weird and wild. So
you sure
I've always
do.
enjoyed the Ferengis.
Yeah, no, the Ferengis are fun, and they can sometimes be played for comedy a little harder than Star Trek is capable of. Like, Star Trek wants to be funny more than they are funny, but it's often overcome by the amazing performances because they hire tremendous actors to play their Ferengi. All right, well, let us move forward to a bit of a surprise because you wouldn't expect that this figure would be a Deep Space Nine recurring character, but she came out in the Deep Space Nine series of toys, so we're going to call it that way. Let's go to 6429, Vash. Let's have her beam in. Now, of course, I'm pretending like I'm seeing that, but we're doing the beaming in post, so I don't really know what's going to happen. The peek behind the curtain.
Don't get too excited.
No, I'm pretty excited. So this is Vash, who is a character that was originally introduced in The Next Generation. Interestingly, in an episode called Captain's Holiday, that featured a Ferengi played by Max Grodenchik, who played Rom. So they sort of came back here, and so she is sort of a swashbuckling Indiana Jones type character who hooks up with Picard while they go and search for archaeology and go on capers and that sort of a thing. But she, in the next episode she's on The Next Generation, guess what? She runs off with Q. Because Q can take her all over the universe, showing her all of the cool archaeological things which she wants to steal and sell because she's of questionable integrity. And in fact, in that Q episode, which is a figure set I didn't talk about yet, but we're going to have to talk about, or talk about them making them because they did an extended Robin Hood fantasy that Q set up, which involved Picard as Robin Hood rescuing Maid Marian Vash. So sort of crazy. She runs off with Q, comes back in season 1 of Deep Space Nine, showing up on Deep Space Nine with Q, which is why she's here and she's wearing this outfit here on in the episode Q-less. So this is played by Jennifer Hetrick, who, interestingly, at that time was Patrick Stewart's girlfriend.
Oh, the plot thickens then.
The plot thickens. So in that episode, Patrick Stewart hooks up with his own girlfriend, which
that's something new.
It's interesting and fun. And so what do you think?
Well, you can see I'm zoomed in because I'm really I don't know the character, so I don't want to get too like in the weeds about it. But the costume looks very scanty, which is fine. That's a choice that I'm sure maybe matches with the lore, so I won't go into it. But I do have to say that the facial sculpture here leaves a little something to be desired. They just slapped some crazy makeup on and called it a day. I don't know that the resemblance does it for me here, Keith.
No, it doesn't really. I mean, it is a figure that I could see without knowing what it was and have no idea what character it was referencing. And it's an odd character to make a figure of too, especially in the Deep Space Nine line, because she was only there once.
Yeah,
and she was only on Next Gen twice.
The choice to do let's see if I can zoom in here and find it here. The stamp, the character stamp, is like right.
Well, and it's not even the character stamp; it's the copyright stamp.
Oh yeah, that's bizarre.
Copyright 1995 Playmates Toys, and there really is an interesting. And if somebody knows, by all means, like let us know why some figures have the copyright stamp and other figures don't. It's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, because sometimes it's on the bottom of the foot sole too. The copyright, isn't it?
Oh, that you might have just solved our own question. Because if let's go to Toy Cam. Let's just do it. Let's go to Toy Cam. Jake, Nog, get out of the way. Here we go. So if you look at the soles of her feet, they're too small. They're too small to put that stamp on. In fact, unlike most of the characters out there, there's only one hole to put her in the stand. Because they couldn't fit two holes and her serial number. So I think that might be the answer to our question, Mike. This is a big moment. I think we might have.
It's more of a hypothesis.
It is a hypothesis. So, Mr. Playmates, since you're already watching all of our videos to find out which ones you should make, you can answer that question. That would be really helpful.
Keith, we're also going to have to, I think you've addressed it on the internet, but apparently there is a lot of discourse over your top 10 list or top 40 list.
There is.
So I can't wait to we need to have a postpartum about that.
Oh, well, we're definitely going to have to do
postmortem. Different podcast.
Postpartum about it. Great. No, in fact, I think it's very likely we might have to do I was going to do like the top 10 that I forgot. I might have to do another top 40.
Oh boy.
Another top 40 that I forgot.
Oh boy.
Oh, because there are so many.
There's some good ones, yeah.
There are some really good ones, and people have had really, really good suggestions. Well, I'm imagining they're looking at their YouTube screen and suggesting that we move on and talk about the last figure in part 1 of the Deep Space Nine recurring friends and enemies. This one is one of my all-time favorite characters. This is number 16035, Garak. Now, let's have him beam in. Ooh, I bet it looks amazing, even though I haven't seen it yet.
It's not going to look much different.
Oh, it's extraordinary. Wow, look at that.
P.S. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, everything about this character is awesome. So, of course, this is played by Andrew Robinson, who is a already came in as a legendary character actor. You might remember him from the first Hellraiser movie. He was also the bad guy in the first Dirty Harry movie. So Garak shows up in 37 episodes of Deep Space Nine, all throughout the entire series, and he is a mystery. He shows up just as he would say, a simple tailor running a dress shop on the show, but we learn, of course, that he has a very complex and interesting story, because basically he's a Cardassian, who are the people who used to run the station before we show up. They're sort of the bad guys. We met a couple of them before. But he works for the Cardassian secret police, or did before. And so the question of who is he, where is he from, is he good, is he bad, what's going on with this guy, is a mystery that continues throughout the entire series. But he's such a charming character. And he also has the most interesting storyline that never happened on Deep Space
Elaborate,
Nine.
please.
Well, because when he started the character, he sort of befriended and became best friends with Dr. Bashir. And he started playing it, and as did Bashir, as though he were in love with Bashir.
Huh.
And so playing it like it was a romantic will they, won't they, etc., until the producers, Berman, got homophobic and said, whoa, 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 don't do that. It wasn't on the page. It was the performers themselves adding that to the complexity of the character, which would have been amazing and cool, and all the actors regret not having been allowed to explore that as a possibility.
So that has been explored, that was exactly how it went down?
Yes.
That's not an editorial there? Wow.
No, the actors themselves, Andrew Robinson said, yes, I was absolutely playing him as though he were in love with Dr. Bashir, until the producers said, no, we're picking up on that subtext.
First of all, what an amazing, I don't want to combine our two podcasts, but what an amazing example of an actor reading between the lines to bring those colors to a character, and just vibing with his scene partner and just kind of discovering that. And then, so does the show sort of retcon it? Can you see a visible shift in the way it's portrayed?
Well, it's subtle. It's subtle. I mean, they remain friends all throughout the whole series and have some really fun adventures that they go on. But yeah, I mean, they definitely sort of it was subtle. I don't think there's anything specific I can point to that says oh, this is the moment where they
Right.
But Garak does weirdly and wildly or somewhat inappropriately fall in love with this young Cardassian girl, and which felt weird and out of place because he was probably 40 years her senior. So they tried to sort of no, he really likes the ladies. I promise. But he was such a badass and such an interesting character. And so the outfit that he's wearing here is from a terrific episode of Deep Space Nine called The Die Is Cast, in which he is literally torturing Odo to get information out of him. And it's one of the darkest moments of his character, but we see him deal with his conflicting desires in that situation and his desperation to get this information. I don't know. There's so much going on there. It's a really cool outfit. You talk for a while.
Yeah, the figure is awesome. I would venture to say that the costuming on the action figure might actually surpass that of a very cool outfit in the show, which is neat.
Agreed.
The facial sculpting is good. It is if I knew nothing of Star Trek, I'd say it's a combination of an alternate Batman mixed with a Herman Munster is the vibe that the character gives off, which is a bizarre mashup I've just created. I love that they are not afraid to play a touch with the scale and the girth of the figures to give him that sort of bulk feel. Because he's a little top heavy there and it's very powerful, which it sounds like. I even see, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's the lighting, a little bit of some sculpting of his body underneath the jacket, kind of down there on the right.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he looks a little more jacked in the figure than he does in real life.
Well, that's action figures, baby.
Yeah. No, he's got a...
We're talking action figures, baby.
Yeah, we got to be awesome.
I'd say he's up there, maybe tied of the set we looked at today with the Dad Ferengi as my tops.
Yeah,
for this set.
So I have one last little thing to show you, because guess what? I have Garak in the box. So let's go to Toy Cam.
Oh, you're very close. You're very close.
Oh, okay. Too close.
We're on 3 cam. Well, you know what? I'm going to go to other Toy Cam. I'll go to other Toy Cam.
Just go to main toy. Go to main toy. There we go. Looking good. So let me turn off the light, and you'll be able to see it a little better. So here it is. So this is in the mixed series of Star Trek. So this came out later. It wasn't part of the Deep Space Nine line, but it came with its own collector's card, which were sort of longer scale in these later ones, and just a couple of little choking hazards there. He has a little phaser and this, that, the other thing. So they did not load him up. There was no second character in his in his box there. But you can also sort of see what was coming down the pike in all of there. So in the mixed series, they did differentiate between, they had some next gen figures and some Deep Space Nine figures and some original series figures coming up. So they had a bunch of them there. So so it's a really cool figure. This is one of the ones I was really happy to get, mainly because I just love that character so much.
Right.
And it's sort of a badass looking figure. So I was very happy. Very happy with this one. Okay, well, Mike, you've seen some Deep Space Nine recurring action figures and some characters. Are you ready to commit to watching Deep Space Nine yet, Mike?
Keith, I've been mulling this over, and I've decided, because we've landed on you've piqued my interest on a couple of the different series, but I have decided that yes, indeed, I'm going to begin my journey with. First finishing this first season of Picard, because I only have 2 more episodes to go, and then jumping into Deep Space Nine. I got a new iPad, and I'm going to start watching. Yeah.
Oh wow. I envy you being able to watch it for the first time. And I mean, you're gonna, as with all the Star Trek shows, the first couple of seasons will have some clunkers in there. Move along home, but. It's going to be worth your while. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and because you enjoy the big emotional stakes and the pew pews, and that's all really fun, right?
Pew. Yeah, I'm into it.
There's a lot of that in Deep Space Nine for what they could afford in 1999, but they did a lot with a little. Let me tell you.
I got nothing. I'm ready.
You got nothing else.
We're gonna have to beam ourselves out of here, because I got TV to watch, and you have action figures to dust off for the next time. But in the meantime, Keith, how can people continue to tell you you're wrong about your selections and comment on their fond memories of characters from all the shows we've looked at thus far?
Indeed. If you are one of the many people who want to enthusiastically and in a friendly fashion talk about Star Trek toys with us, you can leave a comment right below here on the YouTubes, or you can email us directly at lookatmystartrektoys@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at Star Trek Toys, And if you want to be sort of a salty nerd, go ahead, do that too, because we're here for it. And we will be back next week with another exciting episode of...
Keith spells me wrong.
Look at my Star Trek toys!